Welcome to the basketball party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's Wolves Talk every Wednesday, and today you won't hear me uttering the dreaded moral victory phrase.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota basketball party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? Welcome in here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Like I said, it's Wolves Talk every Wednesday here on Locked On Sports Minnesota with a full crew of Wolves experts. We're going to review the Wolves week that was, which included a thunderous Anthony Edwards dunk, concluding a 4-2 road trip, and then a loss last night to a team they're vying with in the Western race, the Denver Nuggets, 115-112. We'll dive into that early and play a little trend or mirage later in the show. But let's meet our panel of experts today, starting with Reggie.
Reggie Wilson, KARL-11, sports director. And you know what? The Wolves, after that performance I've seen last night and throughout that road trip, I think they'll be all right.
I'm Ben Beecken, host of the Daily Locked On Wolves podcast, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what was most impressive about the loss to Denver. I guess in both Reggie and I are contrary to Sam. The loss to the Nuggets. What was good about it on Tuesday night?
I'm Jack Borman, editor-in-chief of Canis Hoopus and co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast after every Timberwolves game with my man Luke Inman. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why the defense that we saw from the Timberwolves last night was a little different than what we normally see, but also why it's a proof of concept that they'll be able to use in the playoffs.
And I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers and NFL wide receiver, also Gopher Sports Hall of Famer. And I'm explaining this t-shirt. Captain America, Anthony Edwards, there's a correlation there.
And before I get into the most unpopular take of the show, I'm going to remind people that they can watch us on Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Help us get to 8,000 subscribers next. And you can listen to us on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed, where Ben Beecken has daily Wolves shows. We also live there. And you can subscribe to that wherever you get your podcasts. Also on the Sirius XM app, where you can, by the way, hear Alan Horton call all the Wolves games. Last night was fun. Jack Borman said off air, it was a lit atmosphere, and usually off a long road trip, the first crowd back is always into it because they haven't seen the team in a while. It had been 2 weeks. T-Wolves have no bigs. Nas, head injury. Rudy, rib injury. Cat, knee injury. So it's Kyle Anderson and Luka Garza. Good luck against Joker. I will say this. The Wolves come back from 18 down, and I commend them for that. You did not need to probably try that hard. You probably could have gotten away with not trying that hard and letting that one slip away, and no one would have faulted you for it. So I do give my flowers to the Wolves for coming back in that game from 18. Here's where I'm ticked off. In the fourth quarter of a mega important game, you had a chance. You had, once you get to that point, then I expect your professionalism to take over. So the Wolves lost this game in two different segments. They go up 84-82, right? So they've got the lead after the big comeback. Next 5 opportunities to score to end the third quarter. Missed shots by Warren, Edwards, Garza, turnover to end the third quarter. Nuggets retake the lead. But you get another chance. You take the lead back. You're up 4 midway through the fourth quarter. Next 5 times down the floor. Garza miss, Edwards miss, Conley miss, Morris miss, Edwards miss again. You had it. You had it there if you hit some open shots, and the Wolves didn't do that in the critical parts of the game. That's why I'm irked. I'm irked about it. I'm glad they made it interesting. Yay. Congratulations. Make some shots in the fourth quarter, and it's the win of the season. Instead, we have to talk about a moral victory, and I hate that.
Did you have Nuggets plus 8, Sam?
No, I can't gamble in Minnesota.
That's a yes.
You know that. You know that, Jack. We're not a legal FanDuel state. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Jack, take it.
Yeah. Hey, look, for me, I was really pleased with just the way that the Timberwolves battled. don't forget, this is also a second night of the back-to-back, and Denver's been waiting in Minneapolis after losing on Sunday in Dallas at the buzzer. So you knew that they were going to come in and play pissed off and really try to run it up on a Wolves team that was down all three bigs against the Nuggets, going against the best player in the league by far, Nikola Jokic, and it didn't look good on paper, and it didn't look good in the first 3 minutes after Kyle Anderson picked up 3 fouls, and then Garza comes in, picks up a foul right away. But the Timberwolves, then they just had to go small, and they had to cause a ton of chaos defensively, which was a ton of fun. They didn't do it quite as well in the first half, but in the second half, they really ratcheted up the intensity on the defensive end of the ball. Guards really got into perimeter players, and they sent a bunch of double teams at Nikola Jokic, and that's normally something that just allows him to carve you up. But this was actually the 5th game of the year in which the Joker had more turnovers than assists, and he had his fewest assists in a game he had all year last night with 2. And Chris Finch said post-game that he really wanted the team to just go junk up the game with physicality and activity in the second half, and that's exactly what they did. They went small, and then offensively, they were able to play off of that. They scored 28 points off turnovers, which was tied for the 3rd most they've had in a game all year. And we all know that this team needs to create offense as easily as they can. So for them to prove that they were able to go small, force a ton of turnovers, I think it was the 3rd most turnovers Denver has had in a game this year, 17. They're one of the best teams in the league at taking care of the ball. And so, the way that they proved that they were able to go small, I think that that's going to be really important in matchups where Karl gets a couple fouls early or isn't playing in the first round of the playoffs. Rudy might pick up a couple fouls, and they can really kind of stay true to that identity that we saw 2 years ago, because there's still guys in the team that were there 2 years ago and remember how to kind of play in that fight or flight, fly around, cause havoc defense that we saw that was really fun to watch. And the Wolves really used it to their advantage last night in a big spot. And like you said, Sam, it wasn't the defense. It was the offense that really hurt them.
Well, the defense gave up 70 in the first half. Let's not pat them on the head.
Down the stretch. They rebounded really well.
They were good. They were good in the second half.
Tough crowd.
Reggie, whose side are you taking here? Are you on the Jack Borman side or the Sam Ekstrom side, the realistic side?
Sam, I am not on your side today. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be with Jack. What I thought was impressive was, Jack mentioned Joker's assists. Through 3 quarters, he didn't have one. I was looking at his stat line. I was like, oh, Joker doesn't have an assist, but he has 15 boards, and he had like 26 points through 3. And so I think, look, he finished with 35. He got 2 assists in the 4th, and Joker's gonna get his. I feel like they acquitted themselves fairly well when it comes to Joker, because like I said, he's just going to get his. You can only hope that he just has an off night. Usually that's what really stops him. Nobody really can stop him. And then, some clutch shooting really late down the stretch by Michael Porter Jr. as well. And that was a really big key for the Nuggets as well, which was tough because how some of the rotations kind of shook out late. You were talking about that 4th quarter, Sam. Man, you were relying on guys like Luka Garza to make shots in the clutch, and it just wasn't happening. I could think of a couple times where Garza had a wide open 3 and just couldn't make it to extend the lead, and then the game just kind of swung from there because the Nuggets got the ball off the miss, took it down, and got the bucket, and it just kind of, had the Wolves playing from behind much of the 4th quarter, which was tough. But look, I agree with you though, Sam. There are no moral victories, right? But they were down 18 at one point, and it looked like, oh man, they came back home, and this is the second night of a back-to-back, so you'll just give them a pass, But Anthony Edwards being a questionable participant coming in, game time decision, whatever you want to call it, with that dislocated finger that he had. He scored 30 points through 3 quarters. He and Jaden McDaniels had the game of his life. Like, when you come down in the 4th quarter, you don't have Cat, you don't have Nas, you don't have Rudy. You need a bucket. And Jaden McDaniels is just like, you know what? I'm just going to throw this one up. Like, he's feeling it. He's confident, and put the game within 3 a couple times late. Like it was an incredible performance from Jaden, and I think that's an encouraging thing. You look at Jaden to be a guy who can be a 3-and-D guy, like a legitimate 3-and-D guy for this Wolves team. And if somehow, some way, he can continue to have performances, maybe not like that might be, we might not see a performance quite like that from Jaden from the rest of the way. But if he can kind of be consistent, because there were games, we talked about it on this show, there were games where Jaden didn't even score a point, or, he wasn't really involved offensively. And if he could do something similar to that, this Wolves team is cooking with gas. And it was also, as Jack said, very encouraging to see that without all of their bigs, they did find a way to compete with and almost find a chance to beat the Nuggets, or at least send it to OT if Ant makes that shot at the buzzer. So there are things to be encouraged about moving forward, that, yes, there are no moral victories, but there are chances that you can see them stealing victories moving forward, even if they're not at top strength.
Yeah, Jaden popping off once in a blue moon here. It is nice. Love to see it more consistently. We'll get into more of Jaden in trend or mirage. Ben, I think I know where you stand on this. Tell me why last night was a positive.
I think I'll be that guy and say everybody's right. So far, everybody's right. I mean, Sam, you were right off the top with your, they just need to make some shots. I mean, that's kind of the story of the game. Like I said this on today's Locked On Wolves. I mean, they lost by one possession, and they shot, 34% from three in this game? Yeah, 34%. And how many of those were those tough contested threes when they were just trying to come back from multiple possessions in the final minute? Like they were under 30% for most of the game from three. They knocked down a couple of those open threes, and they're in really good shape in this game. And now, granted, Garza shot 8 of their 35 3-point attempts in this game, but Conley was 1 of 4. Alexander Walker was 0 for 4. Like that's pretty uncharacteristic. The Wolves have the 4th best 3-point shooting percentage as a team in the league, and their volume has been increasing. So I think it was great that they shot 35 threes, which is above what they average per game. They just needed to make a couple of those. But I guess that also speaks to the overall point that I want to make, which is that they played well overall. To everything that Reggie and Jack said, like they did what they needed to do defensively. They moved the ball well on offense. The offense was good throughout. Like they scored at least 27 in every quarter. Besides just missing threes, I thought the ball movement was good. Ant took over when he needed to in the third quarter. When they needed a run, when they were down 15 at halftime, Ant took over. And then in the fourth quarter, Denver legit, like it wasn't like the faux double team where you're kind of showing somebody almost like playing like almost like a free safety, like watching Ant like ready to, to double him when he starts to drive. They were legit sending 2 at the ball, like how you see teams guard Luka Doncic and guys like that. And Ant moved the ball fairly well. He obviously didn't score in the fourth quarter, and he missed the potential game time 3 at the buzzer. But I thought Ant played well overall, and it was just, it was after Ant moved the ball, they were missing those open threes, whether it was Garza or Alexander Walker or, Conley at times down the stretch there, just missing threes. Everything else went pretty well. I thought Ant played a well-rounded game. The other point I want to make real quickly is that if you look at the Wolves bench in this game, none of these guys were playing rotation minutes for this team 5 weeks ago. Like a couple of them weren't even on the team 5 weeks ago. And Luka Garza is on a 2-way contract. He's hardly on the team, right? Like you're talking 4 guys that played minutes off the bench for the Wolves. And the only guy that played any rotation minutes before February 1st this year was Jordan McLaughlin, before February 10th for that matter. So the fact that you're down 2 starters, you're down your 3-headed monster at center, and you're still taking a full strength defending champion team with the rest advantage, the travel disadvantage, all that stuff to the final play of the game is really impressive. And it's a credit to the coaching staff. It's a credit to Chris Finch. It's a credit to how hard these guys played. And Jack talked a little bit about the physicality, especially in the third quarter. They were just, this is another, and I talked about this on today's show too. This is one of the reasons I'm encouraged about the Wolves in the playoffs, because the officials let them play in the third quarter, and you're going to see more of that in the playoffs. This is the type of game. It's almost like the officials said, all right, these are 2 of the best teams. Jokic and Ant are 2 of the best players on the planet. Let's just let these guys go at it and not call a bunch of fouls. And for a period of time, that's what happened. And the Wolves got away with some stuff defensively, and they're going to be able to do that in the playoffs. And they're not going to shoot 34% from 3 at full strength in the playoffs, but they've got Nas on the floor and hopefully eventually have Cat back on the floor. So there's a lot of positives about this game. If they just make a couple more threes, they probably come out of here with a win.
Mm-hmm. Ron Johnson.
Yeah, so let me get the elephant out the room out the way first. When I talk about this shirt, So for those watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube and you're just listening, you might want to go jump on YouTube. Just see it. So it's a cool Captain America shirt. So for those that don't know the origin of Captain America, he went at it alone for a lot. And that's what Anthony Edwards was last night. He was going at it alone for most of the game. The one cool thing about Captain America, and you can go all the way to the last movie, you can go to the end game, you can go to the Infinity Stone movie. There's one thing that always happened. And when we know Thanos, for those that don't know the Captain America in the Universal and Avengers world, Thanos made everybody disappear, half the world. Captain America at some point fought to the end, and then eventually he got his partners back in the end, and they whooped Thanos' butt. If you make Joker Thanos, because he's a giant and can do whatever he wants in most games, when Anthony Edwards gets his crew back, because they've disappeared right now. Thanos snapped his finger, half the team's hurt. When they come back, they are gonna be able to beat the Denver Nuggets. So I'm kind of on both sides. Like, I'm not happy with the way the game finished, because once you're up, I laughed at Sam saying professionalism, but I kind of agree. At some point, you have to realize, like, oh wait, we got this game, because I think mentally everybody went in this looking for a moral victory. Let's just be competitive, especially down 15. I guarantee the halftime speech was, "Hey guys, just keep chipping away at it. We'll be there." And in the fourth quarter, it was 28-28. They had an even fourth quarter. If the Timberwolves could have found a way to just not slow the game down, but figure out where to attack, which is use Captain America, use Anthony Edwards and slow it down. Let him get the shot off 9 times out of 10 because other guys weren't hitting. The other thing, too, is Nickeil Alexander-Walker only had 4 points. We've seen him go for 15. We've seen him go for 28. If he could have even had 10, they win that game. And so I think that's the other part of that. He just had an off night. That happens. Spider-Man, as a little kid, every once in a while, somebody gets the best of him. But once Anthony Edwards kind of breathes life into him, like Tony Stark did to Spider-Man as a kid, he became who he was. And so I'm using a lot of Avengers analogies here, but the biggest thing is I do like the way they lost this. It felt like a little bit of Thanos beating a one-armed team, a one-dimensional team, and then they're going to get their guys back. So I personally think that it was okay. I think this was an okay loss. They should have won. They should have had it, though. So I'm kind of I'm in the middle. I'm not taking anybody's side. I see both sides of it. I think when you have the lead, you got to close it out. But also, I mean, hey, you only had Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley. Let's be real.
Wolves get another crack at them 9 days from now in Denver. Big tiebreaker implications. And then they also play them again in April. So 2 more meetings with the Nuggets before the postseason. Hopefully the Wolves will be healthier with Rudy and Naz back. We got to get to Anthony Edwards' dunk. I mean, and I'm not gonna rain on the dunk parade. It was fantastic, and we're going to talk about it at length coming up on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Brought to you today by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back with you on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Full lineup this week. We had the Ron Johnson show with Chris Strevler yesterday, former Gophers quarterback. Tomorrow, it's the Minnesota Football Party, talking about the Shaq Griffin signing. And then on Friday, it's the Round Table with Ron Johnson, myself, and our favorite KARE 11 sports anchors. Let's go back 2 days to the Ant dunk. The Anthony Edwards dunk heard around the world. Dunk of his career, dunk of the year, dunk of the era in the NBA. It was spectacular. I want your favorite part of the dunk. Ben Beecken, kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite part, I think, is that it was basically like the Blake Griffin, Timothy Mozgov dunk from like a decade ago, but from like 5 feet farther out, where like he jumped so high that he would have still gotten to the rim, except for he got fouled. And so because he was so high, he was still able to throw it down. And you see guys try that all the time, but it basically never works because they can't actually jump as high as Ant does. That to me was the most impressive thing. Like if he doesn't get fouled, and like Collins doesn't make contact and he just clears him, that would be crazy also. But the fact that he just kept rising and was high enough above the rim that even though his forward momentum was stopped, he was able to hang there long enough, high enough to throw it down through the basket. And I mean, to everybody rating on that parade with the semantics of a dunk isn't a dunk if you don't touch the rim. Well, like he would have touched the rim and he was fouled and he converted the 3-point play and dislocated his finger and the whole thing. So like, there's nothing about that dunk that's not impressive. I mean, but to me, it's getting your momentum stopped and still being high enough in the air to look down on a 10-foot rim and just throw the ball through is the craziest thing.
Jack.
Yeah, I think for me, there were three things that really stuck out to me. I mean, outside of the dunk, which I think at full speed, I was talking to Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the locker room before the game last night, and he was just saying, like, watching that back at full speed was outrageous, and that he thought that, like, he didn't feel like any of the clips or angles did justice, but watching slow-mo's face was incredible. Just all the different angles of slow-mo, just losing his mind. My second favorite one was if you go to Monte Morris's Twitter account, you'll see that he retweeted it or quote tweeted or whatever. There was a 5-second video of Ant wasn't really celebrating and Monte was kind of going over to hype him up, and Ant's finger, you can see his finger, and Monte's face is just like when he sees Ant's finger, which was great. And then my man Kyle Tigey tweeted something out about Chris Finch, where my box here is too small to do Finchy justice here on the stream, but Finch's arms just like flapped to the side for half a second, and you could tell that emotional robot in a sense Chris Finch just totally had a moment where he short-circuited and just kind of lost his mind for like half a second, maybe not even half a second. And so I demonstrate, Jack, so that the YouTube people can so he's kind of crossing his arms and then like and then just like that wheel his arms to the side. It was, I don't know, it was just so funny. It was like he was doing the block call. It was like he was saying, all right, it's a block, it's not a charge. I think that was maybe his instinct. Yeah, but still talking to some other guys in the locker room last night. I mean, those guys just couldn't believe it. I mean, Nickeil also said that, like what's unfortunate, I guess, in a sense, is that the only way I ever top that with an assist is if I win like a playoff series on an assist, if I assisted like a Dame buzzer beater to end a series type of thing. So, but it was a ton of fun.
Ron.
So for me, I hate to say it, he didn't touch the rim. So it's gonna go down as a dunk, but then over the years, like Blake Griffin's, that's gonna get in question. Like, you didn't touch the rim. That was a hard layup. But it was one of the best hard layups I've ever seen. Like, it was ridiculous. I think he dislocated his finger on the dude's face. Like, after I watched it over and over again, you can kind of see the force of which he like went to like forearm shiver him. He kind of caught his face or his chin weird, and it looks like that popped the finger out. I don't think it was the ball. But so much adrenaline, so much going through it, he didn't even notice it. But yeah, it's going to go down in the history. Like when you think about LeBron James, I think it was Jason Terry caught his brunt, the Celtics Heat. You got the Blake Griffin. You got the DeAndre Jordan versus the Pistons, like the Chris Paul setup alley-oop. Like that was it. And I said it on the show with Sam on the Daily 3. The only thing that annoyed me the most was the finger, because him dislocating his finger did not allow him to give us like an iconic face. The iconic face came from his teammate when he saw the finger dislocated. It was like what is that? Like,
I think we learned something, Ron. We learned that you make the same face at a nasty dunk as you do a nasty finger injury. Because I think the faces were the same for both.
It looked like DeAndre Jordan when he realized like what he had done. Like, okay, that was bad. But yeah, like that's the only thing. Because like Anthony Edwards even says, like, man, I couldn't even really celebrate because my hands started hurting. Because he wanted to do something, who knows what. But it would have been like one of those parental advisory, like, the reels you see now where a guy in NBA or NFL does something and then they catch the pose, and then they put that parental advisory underneath it. Like that's what it was like. It was like that man has a family. Like did you really just do that to that guy? His kids are gonna see this one day and be like, Dad, that was you. Like imagine the dude that got pushed by Shaq, or the guy that got dunked on by or was that Chris Mullins? I think got dunked on by Sean Kemp. Like those are things you just have to live with. Like Jordan dunking on the Knicks. Like I guarantee those grandkids are like, Dad, that was you? Oh man, like what are you doing? Like he's gonna be Anthony Edwards' poster for like contract extensions, everything for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I still think the greatest dunk of all time was Vince Carter in the Olympics. I think that's going to hold the test of time because he jumped over a 7-foot dude. But for me, like just top of head, it's probably top 5, top 10 for sure of dunks that I've seen in a real game. The Michael Grady call on that dunk was just outstanding. And I think that it was a perfect soundtrack for the moment. And that I think adds a lot to it when the announcer loses his mind as well. And he recognized it immediately that was unbelievably special. I like watching it over and over again and picking out a different person every time, like doing it with Finch, doing it with people in the crowd, doing it with coaches on the bench. It's just really funny to see the visceral reactions you get when people witness that kind of thing. But two, for Edwards to come back from the dislocation and then play the way he did in the fourth quarter in a game that was a little tenuous at the time, that's even adds to the legend that this was part of a mystical performance as well from Edwards, leading his team with no big men in the final quarter in Utah.
So, a few things. First off, the Atlanta Hawks wanted to get rid of John Collins so bad that they sent him to Utah. So really, this is the Atlanta Hawks' fault, honestly, because they sent him to obscurity. And a few things. The dunk itself, ridiculous. Grady, as you mentioned, Sam, temporarily lost his mind because it seemed like it was registering with him in real time. And like at first when Ant kind of like went up, like he wasn't really, excited on the mount. But like once he stuck it, it was like he just lost, like he couldn't believe what he saw. And Jim Pete was just like, he tweeted about it. He was like, look, I was going to let Grady cook. And every time a moment happens, Grady always meets the moment with the call. The dude is a young star in the announcing ranks. All right. Now back to the dunk. What makes it so bad is that Collins has to leave the game after the dunk, does not return. Like, that's like when somebody snatches your chain and you gotta go. Like my grandma gave me that chain, man, and you just gotta go. Like you walk, you cower and walk to the locker room. Like embarrassing on so many different levels. Not only did you get dunked on, but now you have a head contusion, concussion, whatever they want to call it. And now you're out for the game. What makes it worse? Bally edited Ant's reaction, but if you saw on Twitter, Mr. Chris Hine posted it on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He basically called John Collins a little boy, reacted to it in real time. He called him a little boy, a little dude. Retire. Like, there's no coming back from that. You get dunked on. I don't care that he didn't touch the rim, Ron. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. He posterized my man and then called him a little dude after. Game over. End his season. It's going nowhere in Utah anyway. Just go back to Atlanta or something. It's over.
And then the clip, too, of Edwards signing autographs after the game. Little kid says, Aunt, can I have your jersey? And he goes, nah, I got to give it to Collins.
No, he said Colin Sexton. They're both from Georgia. He gave it to Colin Sexton.
Oh, it's way more fun. It's way more fun to think that he said Collins. Why'd you have to ruin that, Jack? Oh,
he did say Collins.
Accuracy is important, Sam. You of all people can appreciate that.
Wait. So Colin Sexton went where?
They're both from Georgia.
He went to Bama, but they're
yeah,
both
he went to Bama. Okay,
Georgia,
so they're from the state of Georgia. Okay, man, that would because he dunked on him 3 times. He dunked on him in the dunk. He dunked on him in the post-game interview, and I thought he dunked on him in the autograph line, but apparently not. Thank you, Jack, for clearing that up. Trend or mirage coming up next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Brought to you today by Nissan. Let me tell you about the 2024 Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, and Armada. These cars can take you on some serious adventures. The full lineup of SUVs with the capability to get you from point A to point B in style. The Rogue, perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your updating assistant that you can call on for almost anything in this automated world we live in. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are built right into a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen. Very high tech. How about the Pathfinder? Can fit 8. Expansive cargo capacity, advanced available 4x4 capability, 284 horsepower, 6,000 pounds towing. And the Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat 8 in first-class luxury, tow bigger, and explore further with the Armada. Take the Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada for a ride. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, some rapid fire on the Minnesota Basketball Party. The game, gentlemen, is trend or mirage. I want a minute from each of you on the following topics that might be concerning to you, or you might say, no, that's a mirage. That's not a trend. How about Jaden McDaniels' offensive woes? Not last night, but up to last night. Maybe he broke the trend last night. Ron Johnson, Jaden McDaniels struggles. What do you think?
I'm not worried about it. Here's the thing. When you look at, like I said Nah went off for 28 and 15. I think this team after the Cat. So if you go back to that Cat 60-point game, I think a lot of the people on the team realize, you know what? Like if somebody's cooking, let them cook, but then don't interject yourself into that game and force it. And so I think Jaden McDaniels is honestly just trying to find his way. Like we saw Naz Reid go off. We've seen Mike Conley go off with multiple 3-point night games. We know Anthony Edwards is going to go off. And so with the absence of Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns and Naz Reid, I think that allowed Jaden McDaniels to what we saw. So I think that's the thing is like it's tough on a team like this all of a sudden when we're worried about who's going to be the guy, and then they end up having a bunch of guys that can feel the put the ball in the basket. And so honestly, when I've been there, like I've been the number one scorer on pickup teams. And then I've been in games where I'm like, man, these other dudes are shooting. Let me just pass the ball. Like, let me just get rebounds, play a little defense, and pass the ball. So I think Jaden McDaniels is just trying to find his way within that 5 when he's on the court. And it's not always for him to be the first guy to shoot.
Mm-hmm. Reggie?
Yeah, I think the woes are mirage. Yeah, I think he will kind of, like I said, the game last night was probably the best of what we could ever see from Jaden McDaniels. But I think he might be somewhere in the middle of that. You know, if he can knock down a couple threes, he's always going to play lockdown defense, get a couple steals, maybe a few blocks. Like, I think that will kind of help transition into some of the rhythm on the offensive end. So I think that's a bit of a mirage. We won't continue to see the struggles leading to him punching something again, which would be really bad.
Why would you even bring that up?
Look, man, it things follow people, But I love me some Jaden, man. Okay.
The Vikings have to draft Jaden Daniels so that we have a Jaden Daniels and a Jaden McDaniels. Ben Beecken.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about it, but on the flip side, he shot 40% from 3 last year. Jaden's never been like a plus offensive player. His value is obviously entirely on the defense. The question is, can he knock down wide open catch and shoot threes? And last year he did. So he became, I don't want to say valuable offensively, but he became essentially a net neutral offensive player for much of the season. And we're not seeing that this year. Now, he missed like 20 straight threes going back to, I think, the end of that Cleveland game, maybe that Lakers game where the Lakers dared him to shoot. He shot like 17 times and only scored 10 points. That was kind of the beginning of this slide. And we've seen a couple of these funks that he's been in this year. But actually his 3-point rate is up this year. He's just not making as many. Like the volume is there. The only thing that I've seen it, and I did a little bit about this a week or two ago on Locked On Wolves, probably right at the beginning of when he started to struggle. He's shooting a few more of those weird, like float to the side, like 6-footers instead of getting to the rim. His percentage of shots at the rim and his free throw rate is down this year. Not that he ever shot a ton of free throws, but I mean, that adds up and it matters when it comes to his efficiency. The biggest thing for him though is, I mean, and how many times a game is he actually driving to the rim? I don't have his drives in front of me, but it's not a crazy number, but when they're shorthanded like this, it obviously becomes more clear that he's got the ball in his hands more. He's got to provide a little bit more, but when they're at full strength, he's just got to knock down, catch and shoot threes at something above a league average clip. And he's been really streaky this year. So he's just got to, I guess, get hot when it matters most here at the end of the regular season, early playoffs. That's going to be the biggest thing. Can he knock down catch and shoot threes, and add that element to the Wolves offense? Because he's not going to be asked to be a high usage guy, as Ron said, when the team's at full strength.
And Jack.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a mirage just in the sense that, Jaden is 7th on this team in touches per game, and he receives the 3rd fewest passes of any rotation player, but he's 4th in points per touch. Like when he gets touches, he generally does a good job of converting them into points or at least doing something productive with the basketball. I just think that last night he had 26 points, but it all came in a really sustainable way in that, he was cutting, he was driving against smaller guards that he can finish over rather easily. He was, setting screens off the ball. He was coming above the break and calling for the basketball. And, I think it's also a great thing that we saw Jaden McDaniels play at the start of the 2nd and 4th quarters. That's something that I've been calling for pretty much the whole year as a way to sort of empower Jaden offensively, because that group at the start of the 2nd and the start of the 4th has really struggled to score the ball for the majority of the season, and adding someone else who has the talent. I mean, his combination of handle and, agility and his touch around the rim is really fun to watch. And I just think the more that, they can kind of scale up some of what Jaden does, I think the better off they'll be. And the good news is that, you don't have to ask Jaden to be somebody that he's not. It's just asking him to do more of what he's already good at. And I think some of that is on his teammates to try to find him more when he is open, but some of it too is on, Jaden, whether it's corner crashing to get offensive rebounds or coming above the break to get the ball or cutting more, or setting more screens so he can roll and catch the ball in the middle of the floor. He's also got to be more active than somebody that just stands in the corner. And I think, Finch can also help him out by playing him more at the start of the 2nd and 4th quarters. And I think we really saw him kind of catch a rhythm playing in the early part of that 2nd quarter last night that sustained for the whole game.
Yeah, empower was a good word there, Jack, because it seems like when he knows he has more responsibility, he rises to that occasion. His previous good game was arguably March 1st against Sacramento when Anthony Edwards missed the second half, and they needed someone, and Jaden stepped up then. However, this is a trend. Because these are Jaden McDaniels' shooting percentages month by month this season. This is the definition of a trend. 56%, 50.5, 49, 43.8, and 40. I mean, that's as linear as you can possibly get. So it's declined every single month. So that by definition, it is a trend. Hopefully he's broken out of it. I thought last night I was watching Wemby a couple times when he drove to the basket and just stretched and slammed it. That's the Jaden I love when he's aggressive and assertive. From J-Mac to J-Mac, how about Jordan McLaughlin? This is a positive one. Jordan McLaughlin's 3-point shooting has been excellent. Reggie, is it a trend or a mirage?
Oh, that's a trend. I feel like he's a guy, even going back several years, that you can rely on to do that type of shot-making ability. And look, when Monte Morris got signed and TJ Warren is, maybe he was looking like, man, what does this mean for my minutes? But, Finchy loves the guy, obviously. And so he'll get his minutes, he'll get his touches, and he seems to make the most of them when he has the opportunity. So I think that's a trend. I think, his shot making ability will be helpful, especially down the stretch when they need it.
Ben?
Yeah, I credit Jordan McLaughlin for staying ready because, like Reggie said, he's been out of the rotation several times this year. He's probably going to end up playing less minutes than he has in most, probably every year of his career. It'll be close, but it'll be in that neighborhood. We just don't have enough data to suggest that he's actually a 40. I mean, I don't think he's a 45% 3-point shooter because that's what he's up to now. He's got this weird trend line in his career where his rookie year, he shot 38% from three, and it's dropped every single year. He was down to just over 30% last year. So to expect him to all of a sudden be a 45% shooter, and for his career now, he's at 36%, which is probably about right. But even still, the volume of 3-pointers he shot for his career, he's attempted less 3-pointers than Anthony Edwards has this season. So we just don't have that much data. I mean, he's attempted 395 threes for his career. I think Ant's a little over 400 for the year. So it's great that he's hot. It's great that he stayed ready. He's obviously a true professional, and he's got to be the best 3rd-point guard in the entire league, right? So I hope that it continues. The Wolves just have to ride this wave while he's hot. I don't know that it's going to last, and also once they get to the playoffs, in a perfect world, he's not in the rotation anyway, but certainly tons of credit to him for staying ready and playing as well as he has been lately.
Mm-hmm. Jack?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat of a trend in that if you loaded up the clips of every single Jordan McLaughlin 3 from this year, I would venture to guess that more than half of them are wider than wide open shots. And one of my favorite things to do when I go to NBA games is to, sit in the courtside seats and watch guys warm up, just because they're insanely talented guys, even if you don't see everything that they can do in a game. And I mean, Jordan McLaughlin consistently probably makes 75% of his, threes that he makes in warmups. And, and Jordan McLaughlin is getting essentially warm-up level shots, right? Where an assistant coach is just passing the ball right in the shooting pocket. He's wide open. He doesn't have to worry about a defender. And a lot of times that's the case, whether it's a wide open corner 3 or they're sagging off of him in the slot. He's taking smart threes. He doesn't force anything from beyond the arc. And there are a lot of, wide open catch and shoot in rhythm threes. And it's not surprising to me at all that somebody, that has the touch that he has is able to knock him down at a 45% clip. And I think it's definitely sustainable if maybe not 45%, but like, above his career average and creeping up to 40%, a little over that if he continues to get shots as open as the ones he gets now.
Mm-hmm. And Ron?
Yeah, so I'll say I'm going off the percentage right now for the season. I can't go off anything but that. He's at 45.3% right now. But you look at, he didn't play much or get many shots off in the 3 games. He didn't play in 3 games. The game against the Kings, March 1st. So going back to March 1st, didn't get a 3 off. It was 2 for 2 in field goals. You go to March 18th, he was 3 for 3. You go to March 10th against the Lakers, put a ton of shots up. He was 4 for 9. And so what I see is a guy that can shoot. And again, I go back to, you have to feel the game. I think if it's a trend, if this is the direction in which they need him to go, which is they're going to go small for a little bit of these games. They're going to spread the floor out a little bit more. We know Mike Conley, if he's wide open, he's knocking down dead to right shots. Mike Conley, if they start to really realize like, hey, we got to run out at Conley, now you got that secondary pass. If you go way back to the Spurs days of like Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and when Kawhi Leonard became who he was, it was that secondary pass. And I think Mike Conley is one of the smartest secondary passers in the NBA as far as not forcing his shot, unlike the other point guard that was left-handed that played for the Timberwolves, that plays for the Lakers now, that loves to tell Iggy Azalea her boyfriend's cheating on her. But if you think about that, it's just the smart play. And I think it is a trend. I think it's a little Mirage-ish just because of how many times is he going to get this. But if he gets it and he gets the touches, I think it's a trend. Like he can shoot. I did mention, I think I tweeted it or I said it to Sam on our show, one of the games, like it was like at the end of the clock and he should have shot it and he like kept dribbling at the end of the half or something. I'm like, just shoot the ball. So I hope that was the game too, where he's like, you know what, let me just shoot this thing because I can get this shot off. And so now I think it could be a trend.
Okay, now who's bringing up stuff? Like if I'm out of bounds for bringing up Jaden, you bringing up D'Lo and the snitching? Like, dang, that's even worse.
My bad.
Brad, what can we say that's problematic? The three of them have done it. We need to do it.
I was at a family barbecue. My bad. Woosah.
Jordan McLaughlin is 55% from three since February 1st. I gotta call Mirage on that. 55%. That's
why I went to the 45. That's why I said 45.
Yeah,
you are not winning over any Timberwolves fans on this pod today.
Should I also bring up how I don't enjoy watching Jokic play basketball?
It's European slow, but very effective. Hey, Reggie, by the way, Swaggy P tweeted it too about D'Angelo Russell. He just did the eyes emoji because D'Angelo Russell did something and he just did so he hasn't forgotten.
Recent?
Yeah, it was like a couple days ago.
Oh man, let that hurt go.
I love when we go TMZ on this show. That's when this show is at its best, I think. I need 30 seconds from each of you. Time's running low. Wolves have now lost 5 straight home games to winning teams. Let's start with Ron. Trend or Mirage?
I think it's a mirage for the simple fact of who they're missing. So I don't really care. It's not a trend if you're not at full strength. And that's why I say it's a mirage. I'm leaving it at that. I just think, at home, losing to teams that are good. And then also you're still the number 3 team. And I said it earlier, 2 weeks ago? I'm health over wins. So whatever they got to do to get back full healthy by the second round of the playoffs, I think the first round they should be fine, hopefully. Second round of playoffs, they got to be fully healthy. So I think it's a mirage.
All right, Reg?
Yeah, I think it's a mirage too. I think this season, out of the last few seasons that I've been a part of with the Timberwolves, has shown that they can play with anybody. They can beat anybody. In football is any given Sunday. With them is any given game day. You just never know. If you want to count them out, it would be unwise to, because they've just shown that they're a different squad this year.
Mr. Beecken.
Yeah, I think it's more of a mirage than anything. It's just kind of you play good competition. You're not going to win every time. In fact, I was just looking, they haven't lost a home game by more than 2 possessions since January 3rd. They've only lost 2 home games by more than 2 possessions all season long. So they're more than competitive at home. Obviously, they still have one of the league's best home records. It's just not quite as good as OKC or Denver. I think it's more a function of, as Ron said, injuries, also playing better teams. You're going to lose some of those games. You're not going to, nobody sweeps the playoffs, right? Like, you're going to lose some games. And then also they had some good fortune early in the season. You think of like the Celtics win in overtime and some other close wins they had early, Golden State win early in the season. You're going to lose a handful of close ones, and that's just what's happening. I think it's probably going to snap back the other direction here soon.
Mm-hmm. Jack?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's either one of them, to be honest. I mean, you'll lose competitive games in the NBA. I mean, that's just the way it is. I had the same thing written down that Ben had written down, and that they've only had 2 losses of 10 or more points at home all season long. And 8 of their 9 losses at home this year have been to playoff teams. So, I mean, it's partly too a little bit of a recipe, right? Like it's a lot of teams that can play fast, spread you out, make a ton of threes, and kind of neutralize some of the Wolves' really good defense, right? Is that it doesn't matter how good your defense is. If teams are going to share the ball really well and just make a ton of threes, there's not a whole lot you can do necessarily. So they've been really competitive, and that's really all you can ask for, especially when you look at how good they've been on the road and what their record overall is, especially against teams over 500.
Yeah, feels just like the law of averages coming into play a little bit with some of these home losses. In our final minute, we're going to predict the week, and it's a short week. The Wolves play Friday against the Cavs at home, Sunday against the Warriors before our next show. So I want us all to put up our 2 hands on the count of 3. Reveal your record. You have 3 options: 0-2, 1-1, or 2-0. On the count of 3, I want to see your hands. 1, 2, 3. So you got to now the cameras are going to be inverted. So
I don't know. They're going to win.
So it's a 2-0 from Ron, a 2-0 from Jack, a 2-0.
Who's
from
on
Reggie.
there? By the way, I figured this out yesterday with my daughter. I did not know this. Who's on their cell phone right now? Because I just saw bubbles
on the screen.
Yeah, everybody put the peace sign up again. Do 2.
Oh,
there it is.
Jack,
you're on your cell phone, right?
No, I'm on my computer.
Oh, your Apple. Yeah. Learn something new every day. There you go, people. You learn something every day on Locked On Sports Minnesota.
This was a good day to be watching on YouTube on Locked On Sports Minnesota, also on audio, less fun but still effective. Locked On Wolves audio feed for our full panel: Reggie of Care 11, Ben, Locked On Wolves, Jack, Canis Hoopus, Ron Johnson, the Ron Johnson Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Talk to you next week, and listen to the postcasts as well with Jack and Luke.